What's happening, guys? We're doing this Unit 1 test review. Please note yours is in yellow and doesn't have the word review up here and has the word ID over here. Don't worry about it. It's exactly the same review. Let's hop into it. So this is classify each angle as acute, obtuse, right, or straight. One of the big things about this particular problem is there are four different possibilities that could show up on your test. I did make four different forms of this test myself, so there are going to be four different answers for this first one. You got to be aware of each one of them. So that word acute there is going to be when it's a less than 90 degrees here. So this is a less than 90. I should write that maybe a little bit different. This one's going to be bigger than 90. This one's exactly 90. And then straight is, well, a straight line. Typically is going to have a little tiny thing over it, but not always. So which one of these does it most closely represent? Well, that one's going to be our obtuse. And I don't even know why this one says your paragraph text right here. This is clearly an error. Don't know what's that's all about. Something up with this printing. So it goes. Life happens here. Let's move on to the next one. Classify three different. Oh, yeah, I earned 1 point. By the way, on the actual test, there will be a rubric right here, 1 point for each correct answer. So it kind of tells you what's going on with it. Anyways, name three different angles. So each one of these, you're going to want to have that angle symbol in front. It actually kind of looks super similar to that acute angle symbol that we had. So you're going to have that in front of every single one. And then after that, you have a couple of different choices. The three different angles that we're looking at here, I'm going to go ahead and use some different colors for them. So the three different angles are going to be, looks like this one in red here. I'm going to do this one here in purple. And then maybe the entire big one from side to side here is in blue. So you have all three of those that you have to be able to name. And there's a couple different ways to name them. So you could name, I guess I did it in purple there. Maybe I should have done this first one in red. The first angle here is going to be angle 5. Or the other way to write that, it would have been angle DVC. So you could have also done another or here, or angle CVD, because you're doing C, then V, then D. Remember that V has to be in the center. That is your vertex of your angle. So all three of these would have been correct. You only need one for that correct answer. After that, let's do our second angle here. So that's going to be angle number 4, or we're going to have the angle CVB, or yet again, another one, we are going to have BVC. And then last but not least, our third angle here is going to be the big, huge one, which we actually only have two possible names for. We can't use like 4 and 5 together. It doesn't work. So we're going to have angle DVB or angle BVD, BVD, DVB, the big, huge one. Those are the only way. And guess what? I earned all three of these points. Beautiful. Love it. Over here, we have a line, a segment, and a plane. So a line, remember when you're naming that line there, you're going to have the arrows on it. When you're naming the segment, you do not have the arrows on it. When you're naming the plane, you got to have the word plane followed by 3 non-collinears. So you do need to have those 3 non-collinears. That is the main idea there. Let's make sure we're on top of it. So a line that appears here, it looks like UX is a line that appears. There are so many correct answers here. Unlike the last one, I am not even going to make an attempt at doing any other ones. And that's a U, by the way, not a V. So VX actually doesn't appear on this figure. It'd be like VW. Make sure that line has those arrows on top, and then the segment, maybe like VW would be a good one. It doesn't even necessarily have to be perfect. You actually could have just done the same exact one as like UX here, and then just put the bar over it, and it would have been totally fine. You actually don't need just that segment by itself. And then the word plane there. We do need the word plane in front of it. That's an annoying thing about the word plane. You got to write the word plane down, and then 3 non-collinear points. So how about XWV? So X, W, V, any 3 that are not in the same line will work. And I'm going to go ahead and give myself those 3 points. We're done with the first page. Let's move on to the next one. Beautiful. Find the length indicated. This is our segment addition postulate. It says the part plus the part equals the whole. That is to say, we could just make a nice, beautiful equation, x plus 8 equals 17. Now you might be saying, Mr. Richards, I could have just known that 9 plus 8 equals 17, and therefore x equals 9. And I would say, great, awesome, love you, perfect, you got it right. You didn't actually need to show this whole minus 8 stuff on both sides, but if you did, that's nice too. Here we go. On the next one, it says A, B, and C are collinear. So you have to draw the picture yourself this time, but it's actually exactly the same problem as the one above it. So the one directly above it, just the same, but this one you're going to have to draw it yourself. You have the A, the B, and the C. You have the A. You have the B. You have the C. Your A to B is going to be 11. Your A to C is the whole way across. So it says AC, that's the whole thing, is going to be 23. And then we just don't know what this length is here. It wants us to figure out what BC is. So this one, just like the one right above it, we can just go ahead and do a nice little 11 plus that question mark is going to be 23. Subtract 11 on both sides. You might have been able to do that whole thing in your head and just figure out that it's 12. And if you could, awesome work. You got the 1 point for this problem. Let's keep on moving. Find the midpoint of the line segment. So on this one, I'm just going to use my work shown for it. On every single one of these, we need to label it x1, y1, x2, y2. We have our left-hand values, the x-coordinate. Our right-hand value is the y-coordinate. And our x middle coordinate there is going to be 1 plus -1 divided by 2. I didn't write the formula down. Our values here are going to be x1 plus x2 divided by 2, comma, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. And then we call this one here our x middle, and we call this one right here our y middle. So our x middle here is our first x value plus our second x value is that one, and that one go here and here. And we could just plug this directly into our calculator. As a reminder, when you're using your calculator for this, you do have that nice little fraction button. Yours, you can just hit alpha x and it will just show up. Mine doesn't show up because I don't have the firmware update. That's okay. We can just hit alpha y equals enter. That gives you the fraction there instead. And I can just do 1 plus -1. And it's supposed to be divided by 2. I just forgot because it's 0 anyways. But there it is. We do get 0. You can write 0 over 2 equals 0. So there is our correct midpoint for the x value. And our y midpoint here is going to be 5 plus 5 divided by 2. If you notice, they're exactly the same, and therefore the midpoint is still going to be 5, and that's okay. Sometimes it comes out that way, sometimes it doesn't. Who knows what's going to be on your form? And on the next one, you have the same exact concept, but this time it's on a graph. So you actually have one extra step on this problem. So you're going to use exactly the same formula. You're still finding out what your x1, your y1 is, but you have to label those coordinates yourself. So I'm going to go ahead and call this one my first coordinate. Our first coordinate there is going to be, it looks like we hopped over 1, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 up. So that's going to be the coordinate 1, 4. And again, that's because we went over 1, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 up there. And the second coordinate here that we're doing is going to be, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the x, and +1 for the y. And we need to figure out what this midpoint is. To actually do that, our x middle there is going to be our two x's added together, 1 plus 5 divided by 2. And you might be saying, Mr. Richards, I can do the middle of 1 and 5 in my head. That's great, but you have 1 point for work shown. Got to show it on the ones that say it's work shown, otherwise you won't get the credit. So 1 plus 5 divided by 2 is going to be 3 there, because it's 1 plus 5 is 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3. And again, use that calculator when you're comfortable with it. Then you have a 4 plus a 1 divided by 2. And this one's going to be a decimal. So you can write it in two different ways. You can leave it as a fraction, or you can write it as a decimal. I personally prefer the fraction because that is going to be more useful in your higher level math career. Unless you're going statistics, like AP Stats, we'd actually want the decimal. But, you know, I'm going to stick with the fraction because it's more of a math thing here. So 3, 5 over 2. Beautiful. Moving on over here. I earned all 3 points yet again. Love to see it. Let's move on to this next question. So this question is going to be almost exactly the same as that previous one, where we we're trying to figure out the portion of a line segment that was missing. In this one, we're going to be figuring out the portion of an angle that's missing. So it says that RST, this whole thing all the way around is going to be 142 degrees. So the whole thing is 142 degrees all the way around. And GST, this small one right here, usually we have to draw a little arrow like this just to point to it. That's going to be 28 degrees, and this is the one that we don't know. So setting up a little equation, the question mark plus 28 is equal to 142. We can just subtract 28 on both sides. It's pretty quick. And we're going to get, man, I should use a calculator, right? 122 minus 8 is 114. I ain't using no calculator. I ain't doing it. No way. There you go. You don't really need the degree symbol, but if you put it there, props to you. Awesome stuff. I'm going to go ahead and give myself that point earned. Here we go. The one that we only briefly talked about in my class, we only mentioned it when we were talking about using our constructions and twirling things around. We talked about a bisector, dividing something exactly in half, and a different way of saying it, the word angle bisector. So it just means divides in half here. So this guy divides in half, aka creates equal parts. So because this thing divides it exactly in half and creates those equal parts, you can't even read that. I apologize, guys. It says divides in half, aka creates equal parts. Sorry about that. The point is if this is 36, that means that this here is also 36, and it wants FDE, 36 plus 36 is in fact 72 degrees, and that's the entire problem. Easy peasy, yet another point. Here we go. Find the distance between each pair of points. Graphing is optional, so I am not going to be graphing it. I'm going to go directly into that formula. For the distance formula that we went over in class, it's the square root of x2 minus x1 quantity squared plus y2 minus y1 quantity squared. And in this particular case, we have our x1, our y1, our x2, our y2, and we're just going to go ahead and plug it directly in. So making it directly in, so we're going to use our formula correctly. And by the way, it says 1 point for correctly using formula, so we have to see that formula written out for you to get that full credit. So 3 minus -3. By the way, I actually wrote x1, x2 here, but I did it backwards there. It's okay to do that. If you make that a 1 and that a 2, life still goes on. So you could have done the other way around, or x2, y2, x1, y1. You get the same result. So it turns out that's what I did here. It's okay. All is well. For the next part here, we have y2 minus y1. I'm just going to keep them in the same order I did before. So I started with this one here. So that's what I'm going to start with on the second one. So -3 minus 5 quantity squared. And then you got to plug it into the calculator. You don't actually have to plug it into the calculator. You could do it in your head or do it by hand, do the workout. 3 minus -3 is 6. 6 squared is 36. -3 minus 5 is -8. Squared is 64. 36, 64 is 100. So the entire thing is going to give us a nice little 10 for our final answer. And there's no spot for the answer on this one. Man, I really wish we actually looked over this whole thing, but life goes on. Didn't look over it. It's my fault, guys. My bad. 3 minus -3 parentheses squared plus -3 minus 5 quantity squared, and there we go. It does in fact give you 10, just like we expected. And again, you could do it nice and easy. There you go. Sorry for not having an answer spot for that one. My bad there. Life goes on. We're moving on to the last couple of problems. We only have 3 more left. So find the other endpoint of a line segment with the given endpoint and midpoint. So here we go. Endpoint 7, 7, in the midpoint -5, -4. The way I prefer doing this problem, I did it on the board like this, where we have an X and we have a Y, and we create an X line and we create a Y line. And the idea is we're going to start off with the middle value here. So this midpoint is where we're going to begin, the -5 and the -4. and we're going to go from there. So we're starting off in the middle, and the end point here, this 7 comma 7, these are both going to be on the right for this problem. But you have to be very, very careful for your question, because in your question, it might be that you have like a -3. And if it's a -3, well, it's still over here. But if it's a -8, now it's over there because it's on the other side of that -5. So you have to use your number line intelligently in order to do the problem this way. So you could do it with the whole formula if this is not making sense. Regardless, if you are doing it this way, you're going to go ahead and find this distance right here by doing the left minus the right, or in this case, the 7 minus the -5, and that's going to give you 12. So I'm going to go right at 12 right here. Likewise, this distance right here is going to be 11. And now you either have to add that 11 or subtract that 11, add that 12, subtract that 12 to figure out the other length. But this guy right here must also now be that same 12 there. This guy right here must also be that same 11 right here. And we'll have to do some subtraction. So our final answer, our last value here, really should again had spaces right here for your final stuff there. I apologize for not having them there. That is my fault. We're gonna have our man, I just or subtracting because we're going left. So -5 minus 12 is going to be -17, and -4 minus 11 is going to be -15. That's right here, and right here, there's our -17, there's our -15, and our final correct answer must be in correct notation to earn full credit. It has to be written in an x, comma, y coordinates. It has to be -17, comma, -15. You circle it, you move on with your life. Let's go on to the last couple of questions here. So here we go on the harder ones. So solving for x. We're going to go ahead and do our correct setup equation. This is going to be one of those segment addition postulates. We have a part, and a part equals the whole. So a part plus the other part equals the whole. I prefer to do this one where you divide it down the center, and when you do divide it down the center, you have the x side, and we have the not x side over here. And we're going to copy the things that are in the right spots. We have the 2x, we have the +6. Those are the only things that are in the correct spots. So that 3 has to come over now, becomes a -3x. The 2 comes over, becomes a -2. The 8 comes over, it becomes a -8. And what do you know? -2 minus 8 plus 6, that's going to give us -4. Yet again, if you are ever struggling with that on a calculator, make sure, or struggling with it, negative numbers, just use your calculator for it. If I were to type that into a calculator, sure enough, it gives me -4, just like we expected. We can go ahead and finish this up. 2 minus -3 is -1 with the x on it, which we actually really just write as -x. That's kind of the better way to write that one. And last but not least, there's a negative on both sides of the equation. It just disappears, and you get x is equal to +4. So x equals 4. Final answer. Really should have a spot for it. I'll try to make sure there's a spot for it in the actual test. Let's go ahead and move on to our last problem. I think it's the last problem anyways. Sure is the last question here. And it's going to be the same exact idea, but now it's going to be a little bit more difficult because you have one extra step, 1 point for that final answer. So make sure you're reading that rubric. Make sure you get all of those points down. And here we go. We have DVW. That's what we're looking for. We don't know what this one is. And we're told that UVD is 5x plus 1. So UVD, that's this one. It's kind of hard to see what that one is, but that's going to be our 5x plus 1. And it says that UVW, the entire thing from side to side is 74 degrees. And then it says that DVW, that's this one right here, our question mark, is going to be 8x plus 8. So we're at there are 2 parts equal the whole. So our whole is going to be 74, and our 2 parts going to be 5x plus 1 plus 8x plus 8. And then, yeah, we have a 5 and an 8 together is going to be 13. A 1 plus an 8 together gives me 9. And then this is going to be 74. Now we have to subtract 9 on both sides. If we subtract 9 on both sides, it's going to give us 65. And divide both sides by 13, going to give us 5 there. I did it a slightly different way than I did in the previous one, where I did the X's in the left and the right, because I kind of went into autopilot mode. So I'm going to go ahead and do this one again, just in case you need it. So I apologize. I went into autopilot because I was so excited about being done with this video, and you can already see I'm in pajamas. I'm kind of ready for the end of the day here. Sorry, guys. My bad. 5x over here, ax over here. We have 74, the -1, the -8. So the idea was I copied, I moved that over, I moved that over. 5 and 8 together are going to give us 13. 74 -1 -8, that gives us 65. And now I'm going to divide both sides by 13, show that cancellation, and now in fact x still equals 5. Regardless of what you do, doesn't matter which one you do, you have to plug it in, because the measure of angle DVW is equal to 8x plus 8, which is equal to 8 times 5 plus 8. We figured out that x equals 5, replacing that x with the 5. Throw it into your calculator. 8 times 5 is 40. 40 plus 8 is in fact 48 degrees. That's not my point, CERN, but that's where I'm writing that answer, because I'm done. Have a great rest of your day, guys. Peace.